Alright guys, TacticalRab again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. Ghosty's given an update on his health situation as OpTic Texas get back to scrimming ahead of the World Championship. But Hecz almost calling out his newest recruit, saying, look, it's time to stop with the excuses. No matter how unwell you might have been in maybe only one of the series, according to Scump, they played last weekend. Very much enjoyed to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I'd greatly appreciate it. First of all, quick note on HCS Dallas, I believe is what it's called, that's going on right now. Halo's so tricky to keep up with, man, but here we go. This is, Formal and Co. playing it last night in groups, as they do, because the format over there is kind of like what we used to have back in the good old MLG days. But yeah, they played G1, some other good teams. The groups ended like this, actually, so lots of groups looking pretty interesting. Group C was OpTic's pool. They took down G1, Jailings. They lost to Quadrant, though. That's Lando Norris's team, which is pretty spicy stuff, actually. So, yeah, exciting to see how that plays out for the rest of the weekends. But OpTic go down to Quadrant. I think they lost 3-0 actually. According to Formal's tweets, I'm not exactly sure who is meant to be the favourite coming into this tourney or what the key storylines are. It's been a long time since we've really had any, Halo action really to look at. But, as a Formula 1 fan, I thought it was pretty cool that this, I think this is his helmet, probably a replica helmet that he wore a while ago now, actually, Norris, in one of the races, I think earlier this season, maybe last season. Quick note on Boston as well. They have finally made the move or confirmed the move that Snoopy is in the starting team. I'm not gonna lie, I'm still of the opinion that if you're gonna bring in Snoopy to the roster, okay, very talented rookie player, and you're gonna put him with players that have really no experience or leadership capabilities, it's not gonna work out so well. I'm telling you, man, if they put Doug in for one of their ARs, they will get a better showing out of Snoopy. But anyway, that's just my perspective. They've done it though, so Boston confirmed, feeling froggy. Welcome to the starting roster, Snoopy. So it's really cool to see for this guy, but I mean, man, the pressure has never been higher on a player coming into the World Championship. This guy's getting gassed up by a lot of people, and I do believe for good reason, and I do believe he's got a bright future in the CDL. But for your first competitive professional series to be round one of champs against OpTic Texas, with all the crowd and the eyes on you, that is far from easy, right? So they've confirmed it, and we'll go on to see the full roster in a second. Vivid, of course, the one to make way. The whole Vivid saga is so strange. Why he was in the team at the start looked pretty good, got benched, came back, benched again. I don't know what's going on with Boston. I can't imagine he's happy with them either. End of the CDL year for me, unfortunately. Quite the weird year for me personally. Felt like as a team and individually couldn't translate our practice into matches, causing inconsistency. Looking forward to the next opportunity. So what happens next year for Vivid and Nero? I still think they're very good players. I think Nero especially impressed me a lot this year, and I'm kind of mind-blown he got benched, to be perfectly honest. But I don't think they will be back at Boston, because I reckon that ship has sailed and that bridge is probably burns from an organisational perspective, as we discussed over the last few days here. I do think they'll get a spot somewhere, though. There's too limited an SMG talent pool in this game and in the Challenger side for them not to get back in the league. But will they be together? That's a question, because very similar players, Vivid and Nero, fundamentally. Either of them in the starting team didn't seem to make much difference, right? Both of them could work well, but there were some other aspects that were required that Boston didn't have, and probably still don't have. Here's their roster of 4. Crimp stays. I think that's expected and understandable. Snoopy's now in. Awakening and Beans. I mean, look, this is such a strange team, let's be honest. Where's the leadership? Where's the experience? The slaying power is there. The talent is there, absolutely. And they'll probably win a fair few controls. And I'm looking forward to see Snoopy in action because, Doug has called him the Mexican Shotzzy, or I think even Shotzzy has Mexican heritage, right? But compared his movement to the likes of Shotzzy, which is a high praise. But, I mean, man, just get Doug in here. Why are they not doing it? It really frustrates me. Anyway, that's your starting breach roster for champs. I don't think OpTic are going to have any issues with this personally, but I mean, if Doug was in there, then maybe it's a different story, right? Quick note on Doug, actually, because Zinni, Shotzzy, Zuma, and Doug were playing in that set of scrims they played before, and Method is like, look, we need to get back in right now, and obviously, as he says, Zuma, 7-32, you literally dropped my area codes, bro, you got 1 chip, he says. So, obviously, there was a bit of back and forth on this, right, because Zuma, despite having a great career, never quite made it to a Champs Grand Finals. Zinni, though, did get 1 LAN chip at CDL AWL Atlanta 2018. He won the MVP there as well, in fairness, on Rise, and the other event he won was the Toronto Ultra Home Series on LAN during the Modern Warfare 2019 days. There was this tweet that Method obviously is just joking around here, right? But he deletes this, I guess, because he thought, you know what, it might go a little bit too far and someone like TacticalRab's going to get it screenshotted, as of course one of you kind fellas did for me, so here it is in the video anyway. And then he then replaced it with this tweet, which I thought was pretty entertaining, to be fair. But speaking of, you know, Zinni and these OpTic guys, what are the chances for the actual main starting team going into the World Championship itself? Lots of talk on this the last few days, especially with the illnesses that have been going around that camp. We talked it in detail yesterday, how often this seems to happen to many of these players, and it's expected, right? You're going to go to 6 events a year, you're going to pick something or other up, and obviously that's not ideal. Does that affect you playing practice? Does that affect you in your games? We see it more with OpTic than we do from other teams, let's be honest. So Ghosty explains here in this clip that he was actually in hospital yesterday just to, you know, deal with some things internally that we'll see in a second. But it seems to me, his voice and everything, he's probably okay. He just had to, you know, get over a few things. He can still practice. They got back into playing yesterday. So, okay, they probably lost 1 day of scrims compared to their opposition, which, as I said, maybe reduces their chance of winning the event by a couple of percentage points. Probably not a massive deal. But I thought Hecz and Scump's comments were arguably more interesting here. So Hecz says, look, if you're going to tweet out about yourself being ill and effectively have that as an excuse, you can't in the same tweet saying there's no excuses, right? Because this has always been the big talking point with OpTic the last few years, and it was the first comment a lot of you guys made on yesterday's video. Oh, here we go again, OpTic coming around to champs, here come the excuses, right? And look, you can say that some of them are excuses, some of them aren't, but it's definitely a bit of a trend with OpTic at this point, right? It's got to be said. So Hecz is like, look, don't be doing that Ghosty anymore. You'll learn more over time, which kind of implies that he wants to keep around Ghosty for the medium to longer term, which is probably expected, but nonetheless kind of interesting. But Scump says actually, from his understanding, and this may be wrong, could be miscommunication involved, but he reckons that Ghosty was not unwell for the Florida series, only for the Thieves series, which does change the question again.
Here's our word. He's coming in here, bro.
Yo, I was on stream, heard ranked, yeah.
Yeah, load up. Let's go. I heard you're sick though. You feel better?
Nah, but it's like we ball, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you. I was.
Everybody gets sick,
I was literally in the hospital earlier today. I screamed as well.
What's wrong with you, bro?
Well, no, I was just okay. I mean, I'll just cut it sweet. I had to take laxatives because I was constipated, and like the laxatives ain't do me too well, bro. I had to go to the hospital and help get it out, and
Oi, bruv.
Yeah, it was rough, bro. It was rough.
Sounds horrendous.
Bro.
Abe,
it was
bro?
insane. Abe, it was insane.
Bro, we did not go to Toronto. I don't care what that says.
We lost our, or didn't make the flights.
Nah,
people were making jokes like they love first class so much they wanted to get back on the plane. Like,
that was good.
They're making a bunch of jokes.
No first class for them no more.
We do have a little excuse though, right?
What?
With Ghosty? He was sick as a dog.
No.
Is that a saying?
Yeah, he was. but in my look, this is something that the young man will learn as he continues to be around me, is that you can't tweet out no excuses. But here's my excuse.
Right, he did tweet that out?
But yeah.
What I hate is how like we were on the watch party, like literally breaking down why they lost. Like we didn't make a single excuse, but like I swear people don't know the definition of excuse.
Yeah.
Because like we were like, yeah, they didn't play good, blah blah blah, which isn't an excuse.
Yeah,
that's like they
and
just
then the chat.
and then they're like, well, that's an excuse. It's like, I'm like, dude, I'm like, what are you talking about?
No, that's a reason.
I was like, they didn't block on this and shit, and they're like, yeah, it's like, obviously they had a bad weekend. Dan was sick. I think he wasn't sick day one. He wasn't sick against Mutineers. He was sick against the Thieves, though, I believe. But I mean, I was talking to Dylan at the bar. He's like, we're a tough round one matchup, and I was like, it's a tough round one matchup.
So this was the tweet in question here from Dan Ghosty as they go out the tournament to Los Angeles. Thieves' sickest I've been in a long time, but that's no excuse for this weekend's. Got to lock in for champs. So always an interesting tweet when you see this because he's like, look, no excuses, but I was really unwell. I get it, right? It's tricky, and if Ghosty was seriously unwell on especially the final day, that is going to affect his performance and also the performance of his team because as the leadership figure, the guy doing the comms, it's going to be harder. But if Scump is correct, then actually he wasn't unwell for the Florida, because the implication of this is that, you know, he was unwell for both series, right? That's how you have to read this, because he's like, well, he mentions this weekend's, sick as I've been in a long time. You'd think that if he was sick against Thieves, he'd be sick against Florida as well. Maybe it was coming on, maybe he was a bit unwell in that series as well. But Scump basically says, from his understanding, he wasn't ill against Florida. So that then does make you think, well, I got a second here. They played the same COD against Thieves as they did against Florida. No trading, no fundamentals, just running around and dying. I mean, it was embarrassing to watch, to be honest. And, you know, against Thieves, it's a loss which is frustrating, but it's slightly more acceptable. The Florida loss was, you know, deeply disappointing for the Green Wall because, okay, it's Florida, they do these type of things, but also it's not like they became godlike Florida, right? They played really well in that series, for sure, against OpTic, but I think it was more OpTic doing things wrong than it was Florida doing things right. I honestly don't think Florida played too different to how they did online a couple of weeks before against OpTic, when OpTic 3-0'd them, close 3-0, but a 3-0 nonetheless. I think Florida played a pretty similar game, actually, but it was just OpTic didn't turn up to that particular series. And when Florida played the decent teams in the upcoming rounds, they got bodied, right? They didn't win a map from then on to the rest of the tourney, right? They got 3'd by Minnesota Rokkr and 3'd by the New York subliners, right? So that was the series there, which people will say, well, you know what? If Ghosty was ill, fair enough. But if he wasn't ill, then all of a sudden it raises some even darker questions, I guess, for OpTic. And Hecz is like, look, don't be messing around with these excuses anymore. Maybe do it in a separate tweet or something like that, who knows? But anyway, they're going to get into practice over the coming days. They started yesterday. They're only playing, I believe, 4 teams, and those 4 teams are arguably the 4 you'd most want to play. Apart from the subliners, you'd probably want to play them, but they might play winners round 2. That's very likely, based on the way the bracket is and the fact that Boston, I'm not convinced by that team personally at all, as I think I've made clear here over the last few minutes. So they will be playing FaZe, Surge, Toronto, and Thieves. That's a pretty good selection of 4 teams to scrim against going into the World Championship. I know there was some talk from Octane that they could scrim against challenger teams, but they can't because they're on different accounts, different patches, and it just never works out because they're on different versions of the game. So another Infinity Ward classic, I guess, but I believe that's been a thing for some time at this point. But it was at least good to see Ghosty back on stream and at least playing Call of Duty, because there was some concern, especially if he was in hospital yesterday, that, you know, if he's unwell to a certain level, then maybe it's going to affect their practice more than it already has. Just to look here at the numbers, these are obviously inflated quite substantially by the online stuff compared to LAN, and if this was LAN only, I don't want to know what Huke's numbers would have been. We could have been down to the 40s, right? It wouldn't have been looking good. We got some purple here from Shotzzy in S&D average damage per round, and also for Ghosty hill time per 10, which is basically #1 stat leading in their particular category. Dashy had another great stage here, 96 overall. Obviously, you've got to look at the numbers with a bit of a grain of salt. The way they're calculated is maybe not the most viable at times, but still, I mean, green, a lot of green here. And the elephant in the room, of course, not the greatest stage from Huke, right? 0.91 in hardpoint, 0.75 in Surge. Weird in a way, because was it, what, a couple of stages ago now that Huke was, maybe it was even Major 4 qualifiers, where Huke was godlike in their Search and Destroys, had like a 1.5. Now he's got basically half that KD, so not great. Control wasn't great for him either. So yeah, difficult stage for the OpTic guys, and this is just, I mean, this is including the LAN performance, but it's not really the greatest sign. And also they still go negative in Control. I guess they were 3-2 in Control online, but that's still not necessarily the greatest sign, because there has been a weakness for them, and to go, you know, this is the only game mode they went negative in the entire time. So pretty interesting stuff. We'll also quickly mention this. So as far as hill time goes, there is one man leading the hill kit and lines with 1 hour 51 minutes in the hardpoint this season. That is Octane. So most hardpoint hill time goes to Octane. Congratulations, going into the World Championship. Also though, in terms of percentage wise, Octane actually is only the second most. So if you look at hill time divided by team points scored, the leaders of that, then Ghosty has been in the hardpoint for 40.1% of the team's points, which is remarkably high. Octane's at 38.5%. Doesn't mean he necessarily collects 40% of their points, but like, you know, because you could have multiple guys in hill at the same time. But for 40% of the time that OpTic was scoring points, Ghosty was in the point. And Octane and accuracy not far behind either. So clearly a pretty successful way to play hardpoint, because also Surge have been one of the better hardpoint teams technically, but you probably wouldn't think that here going into the World Championship. So very much enjoyed to hear all your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.